Hi guys, welcome to the podcast. Before we start, we just want to introduce you to our sponsor. Our sponsor is the Twitter handle @MugsNFL. They're a company that offer a range of custom items such as mugs, t-shirts, crewneck jumpers, and hoodies, all customized with your favorite sports player or your sports team. That can be any sport ranging from the NFL through to the NBA to UK sports. All you have to do for an extra 10% off your order is drop them a message on Twitter quoting our podcast, that is the Hardwood Hoops podcast, and they'll get 10% off your next order. Cheers and enjoy the show. Hi guys, welcome to the first Hardwood Hoops podcast. I'm your host Liam, and I'm here with my friend Ben.
Hello.
Hi mate, how are you?
Yeah, very well. How are you?
Yeah, all good, thanks. All good, thanks. Can't wait for the basketball to return, which is what we're here to talk about.
It's exciting news.
Yeah, I know. It seems so long to wait, but we waited for so long. It's like, what's a few more weeks, eh?
Exactly.
Right, cool. We're just going to start with a bit of an intro. So Ben, why don't you go ahead, tell everyone who you are, why we're doing the podcast, and why you love the NBA.
Yes. So, as you've been told, I'm Ben, and we are here for our equal love of NBA basketball. I think mine started through watching the Olympics. Huge sport fan in general, but watching the Olympics and saw this crazy athlete called LeBron James. And ever since I saw him play, I've been hooked ever since. What about you, Liam?
Yeah, I was going to say, just so everyone to know, we've probably been friends for, 15 years?
Yes, easily.
And I would definitely know that LeBron James was your first love, so that's good.
Yeah, he's up there.
But in terms of me, I don't know really. My family are really huge sports fans. My dad was a massive sports fan, so I've always been into every sport really. And because I was tall, I'm quite tall. I was always tall all my life. Dad took me to play basketball when I was very young, probably 7 or 8. So I just started loving playing really. I didn't watch it till I was probably 12, 13, but I just played in school teams, even primary school, year 6 we had a team. And then I saw Carmelo Anthony play for Syracuse. And similar to Ben, that was almost how my love started. It started with college, following one player in Carmelo. And then as he moved to the NBA, I just became a bigger fan. So yeah, that's how that started. And we both played basketball as well. I know, Ben, you played for university, right? And we played for school as well together.
Yep.
Yeah, so we've always played, always watched. And in terms of teams, it's a bit controversial, both of us, to be honest. So why don't you tell everyone who the team that you follow or support is?
I guess, as it pains me to say, it's the Cavaliers because of, the guy that got me into it. But I've obviously followed him around the league. I've been a bit of a Heat fan for a little while. And what pains me more is that he's now joined the Lakers. So I kind of follow them now, which isn't so good. But
you're always looking out for that Cleveland result first, right?
Always. They don't come very often anymore.
No, sure. Yeah, and similar to me, really. So like I said, Carmelo Anthony was my favourite player. And Michael Jordan, to be honest, because that was my dad's favourite basketball player. But yeah, Carmelo growing up, and similar to Ben, really, I did support the Nuggets when I was very young, but it wasn't on TV when we were at school, and not as regularly as it is now. So as he moved to the Knicks, I was a Knicks fan, and then traveling to New York to see Carmelo play, and then as he's kind of filtered away from the league, I've moved on to Dallas Mavericks because the team that my dad supported was Real Madrid basketball in Europe because he supported them in football as well as Leeds. So Doncic played for Real Madrid, now he plays for Dallas, so that's the link really. But I'd agree with you, Ben, really. We just follow a few teams and watch every game, and when the playoffs come around, it's any team, isn't it, really?
Exactly. Thank God for that 2003 draft class.
Yeah, I know, exactly. It's quite funny that players from that draft class got both of us into basketball, really.
Yeah.
Cool. And the plan with the podcast, like I said, we will talk about basketball in general if anything comes up, but it's going to be primarily NBA, everything going on, not team specific, hence why it doesn't really matter that neither of us are necessarily diehards that only watch one team. We're going to talk about the whole league. The plan is to do it weekly, get a few guests on. And we're just going to talk about everything important, right, Ben?
Yeah, that's right. We got our topics we want to cover. We've got things we want to talk about. We've got, things to say. Can't wait to say.
Interviews as well, hopefully. That's the plan.
Oh, fingers crossed.
LeBron James on the podcast. Ben Jones wouldn't know what to do with himself.
I don't know if I could be on that one.
You'd be at home listening on repeat.
Yeah, lose it.
All right, cool. So let's move on. We're going to start by talking about the basics, really. Like I said, we haven't had any sport hardly for a while. Basketball's been finished for 3 months? And we now have a return date. So we'll just quickly run through it. The plan is for 22 teams to go to Orlando to finish the season. 9 from the East, and then the rest made up of teams from the West. They're obviously not going to finish all the games. I believe it's going to be an 8-game finish to the regular season. And then in terms of playoffs, there's going to be a play-in tournament between the 8th and the 9th seed, but only if the 9th seed finishes 4 less games behind the 8th seed. What's your thoughts on the format and how they've done it and how long we've waited for them to find out how they're going to do it?
For me, I think Adam Silver has been phenomenal through this. He's been a real leader in terms of all sports, I think, in the way he's handling this situation with the coronavirus and everything that's going on. I'm interested in the teams they've invited. I think they probably try to make it 21 teams. The Blazers, the Pelicans, the Kings, the Spurs, and then just the Wizards from the East, because that's a real close-knit bunch there. And 21 doesn't quite sound as good, so they've gone, let's make it 22. We'll chuck the Suns in as well.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree. I did hear actually that 20 teams has been talked about a lot, but the people in the East side didn't want only 8 teams. Originally, they were going to go 8 from the East, but obviously they kind of wanted to give some interest, because if you've got 8 teams from the East going, there's no play-in, so everyone knows who they're in. No one's going to play their best roster. There's going to be more of a pre-season, so I think that's why they moved from 8 to 9 on the East side.
Yeah, I think it is a good idea that they have done that to bring back that competition. And you want these guys playing hard and playing themselves back into shape, because after such a long break and guys training at home and things, and you don't want injuries, you don't want rust, and as fans we want to see them play into their full potential. So, and the only way we're going to get that is by having some competitive regular season games before we hit that playoff element.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and the Wizards are 6 games back from Orlando, so it's not exactly a close race. They've got enough games to do it, but I think it's more of a we'll put you in as an inclusion just to try and keep the East happy, I think, rather than realistically thinking there's going to be much competition on that side of the bracket.
Yeah, especially as well, John Wall's come out and said he's not going to be joining the Wizards for this playoff series. So it's still the Bradley Beal show. And I imagine they'll get a couple of wins under their belt. But yeah, unless something goes drastically wrong, they're not catching Brooklyn or Orlando there. Yeah,
and we've also heard, obviously, KD. There was rumours that KD was going to come back, because obviously that could take Brooklyn from the 7th team in the East to the best team in the East. But he's come out now and said, no, he's not going to play this season no matter what. And similar with the Beal show, Brooklyn are going to go with the Kyrie show once again.
Yeah, hopefully if he's back from his injuries as well, because he have surgery again.
Yeah, true. Yeah, 4 surgeries in 4 years, I believe.
Yeah.
One of your favourite Cavs of all time, maybe?
I do love watching him play. I don't know if he's one of my favourite Cavs of all time. Big Mo Williams, he's right up there. But we'll talk about him another time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely not relevant to this year's playoffs. That is for sure.
No.
And then, so in terms of the layout, I also think I know we said there was options of 21 and 20 teams, but I think 22 is a good number. I think if I'm honest, any more than that, I think you're inviting trouble in terms of, we all know why this is happening. We're going to Orlando, we're going no fans purely because of the virus. So in terms of that, the more teams you invite, the more chance of spread, the more people that can be there. And I've now heard that at some point they're going to let families join. So if you brought even extra players in, extra families, more people to infect, I think 22 is a safe number, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I think in terms of keeping it as small as possible, that is the best way. So the families will be invited for the playoffs onwards. So they're reducing those people traveling as much as possible. So once the teams are locked in and they know they're going to be there for, the first of that 7-game series, the families can then come out.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think at the moment there'll be no crowd. So maybe the families could then become the crowd for every game.
Yeah, almost like an AAU style basketball, with your family on the side screaming at your players and the refs.
Yeah.
I've also read about crowd noise. That's obviously another option, pumping in crowd noise, which we're seeing in the Bundesliga, has been spoken about in the NFL. The NFL already do it for the Chargers, who haven't got any home fans. They pump crowd in. So I think there's an option for crowd noise, as well as people's families, which might make a little bit more of an atmosphere. Not the same as a normal playoff game, but some sort of atmosphere.
Yeah, exactly. I did hear of I think it was a German football team that have experimented with cardboard cutouts in each of the seats to try and boost the atmosphere in the stadium. Not sure about that.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. So I know this is an NBA podcast, but everyone will learn. I'm a big Leeds United fan, and I had my email today asking if I wanted to convert my season ticket into options, and one of them included a cardboard cutout of me in my seat for the remaining Leeds games. So I think it's good. It might be good for kids, but it's going to be hard in Orlando as well because they're small seat arenas. I think they're gonna run out of options. You don't want to crowd too many things into a small place.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And then in terms of the virus, with this, so I was listening to another podcast on the Ringer network, and they were discussing that it's going to be everyday testing. So a little bit different to football or soccer. They're going to go every day from the minute the international players arrive back in for training camp before they go to Orlando. Then they're going to fly to Orlando, and then every day from Orlando, every player and every staff and every family member when they do join will be tested every single day. What's your thoughts on that? Is that as good as we're going to get in terms of safety?
Yeah, that's, at this point in time with the things we have available, that is the best outcome we can get from this. I do feel sorry for the players and the staff being there because the tests are very invasive. They're not a fun thing to have done every day. People have quoted it saying it's like having your brain scrambled. But
it doesn't look good.
If that means they get to play the game they love and make their money and eventually become an NBA champion, it's a small sacrifice.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think they're making it as safe as they can. And every team has said that if a player doesn't want to play, doesn't feel safe, then they don't have to play. They're not being forced into it. There's been no conversation of avoiding contracts in that case. I think they probably wouldn't do that, to be honest. But I think they're going to try and make the environment as safe as possible. The only issue, obviously, we do know that this virus does affect ethnic minority groups more. And that is an issue we have in the NBA because obviously we all know 80% of the players in the league, they're black players and they're going to have black families. So it's difficult in terms of the risk. But I think Adam Silver, like you said, has just been phenomenal in terms of being as honest as possible, but also giving them the best chance as possible.
Yeah. And I think, that not everything's set in stone yet. And they're sort of, every day they're developing something new and coming up with a way around different obstacles that we're going to have in place. The tricky thing will be if there is a huge second spike. What do you do then? Do you still go ahead with everything you have in place? Do you pull it off? That's going to be a real tricky thing to sort of try and work out, try and get through.
Yeah, I agree. And they are obviously cordoning off a part of the park. They're using an area actually that I visited before when we went to Orlando. They've got a section for almost youth basketball. So they have like World Championship under 12s, 14s. They're using that area. So it is quite secluded, which is good. But they are opening the park up. So even though the players will be secluded, staff members, there is a chance, obviously, unless they don't monitor it properly, there could be some cross-contamination, but we've all just got to cross our fingers, I guess, and hope that, A, everyone stays safe, because that's the main thing, but B, obviously, we don't want anything happening to curtail the season, or, for example, if LeBron James and Giannis both get it, and they quarantine for 2 weeks in round one, both teams lose in round one, that's just, it's not a fair representation of the season, I don't think, but hopefully we don't get there.
Building from that, though, it's quite good that Adam Silver has said that if one player from the team tests positive, they will essentially pluck that player from the team and he will self-isolate himself, and they will do thorough tests on the whole team and try and keep it all running smoothly as possible, even if one or two players are out here and there. Hopefully it won't make a huge difference. It just depends on the player.
Yeah, exactly. And in America, I've read they do it's a lot of 5 to 7 day quarantines, which is good. The UK at one point was a 14-day. So obviously, you know what basketball's like. If you're 14 days away from your team, you're missing a lot of games, and the playoffs especially. But 7 days, if you're not unwell and you've just got it, in terms of asymptomatic, 7 day way, you're not going to probably miss more than 2 games, you'd hope, in that period. And also, you've got the added fact, if you're getting tested every day, it is going to be hard for an outbreak in that sense. I know obviously you can get false negatives, but if someone has got it and you're testing every day, no one else has got it, you take that person out, unless they interact with someone outside the group, another person, then you'd think, okay, we've taken the one person out, everyone else is negative. Next day, you'd hope everyone remains negative. That's the idea behind what they're trying to do anyway.
Yeah, that is the ideal situation you get, if somebody is unfortunate enough to contract it, that you can safely pluck him out and continue as normal, especially seeing as they are trying to play up to 7 games per day to try and get all these 8 regular season games in before they start the best of 7 playoff series.
Yeah, and like you said, in terms of getting those games done, we know that teams are going to fall out of that, which is going to take down the number of people that are in Orlando. So in terms of risk, the less people we have there, the less risky it is. So if they can get those games done promptly, like they're trying to do, then we should also have less of a risk going forward for the playoffs, which we all know is more important than the regular season.
Yeah, which makes me think, though, this could have been a good time to sort of experiment with, a lot of people have been talking about the 1 to 16 and get rid of the conferences, and they've stuck with the conferences. But I'm kind of thinking, why have they done that? Because those that come in the top seeds don't get home court advantage anymore. Everybody's playing away from home. So where is the advantage going to come from this point onwards?
Yeah, that is something that has been the issue. There's been discussions. I don't know if you've read any of this, but I'll throw a couple of them out there for you. There was one that there'll be no tip-offs for the teams to get the highest seeds. They will start with the ball in every quarter or 3 of the 4th quarters, trying to get some sort of advantage. But comparing that to a home field advantage is just home court. Sorry, it's not the same, is it? It's not the same.
No. Yeah, one of the other ones I heard was either you elect one player and he has 7 fouls, or potentially he cannot foul out, which could cause a few issues here and there.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, I agree. And the other one, at one point, they were discussing that if they did go unseeded, the top seed would choose who they wanted to play, which would obviously be a hell of a rivalry. For example, the Lakers are choosing, I don't know, the Mavericks. In my case, someone like Luka's going to take that personally, but in the end, they've gone for the more safe format, I would say, of sticking to what they know.
Yeah, and I think that's a clever idea in terms of achieving the things they want to achieve under the circumstances.
Yeah, you just think potentially they may have missed out on an opportunity to improve the league through a bad reason in terms of the virus, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
Yeah, because I was reading, we've all known that loads of people want the conferences scrapped due to the strength of the West. And another thing you read is that teams want the NBA to start at Christmas going forward, or December, to get away from the NFL, because NFL is the most popular sport in America. It takes a lot of the viewers. So if we can move that season to December, the NFL finishes in February, the NBA has that whole summer window, and this might be a way to get that going in the forward, which I think for us, especially in England, as English basketball fans, There's no football or anything in the summer. Rugby stops as well. Like, to have basketball as a summer sport, I think could be a really good idea for them to boosting popularity to the sport. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good opportunity for that. So, like you said, sticking with the same old things at this point in time is going to help us potentially going forward. So I've got the score here released a potential sort of calendar for the coming months. So June 30th, the training camps begin for the 22 teams. July 7th, teams travel to the bubble in Orlando. July 31st, 2019-20 regular seasons resumes. 25th of August is then the draft lottery. October 12th, last possible date for Game 7 of the finals. October 15th, the 2020 draft. October 18th, free agency begins. November 10th, the 2020-2021 NBA training camp begins. And December 1st, NBA season begins.
Yeah, that is right. And I did read that the thinking behind the December the 1st, even though that's earlier than what the pundits thought it would be, they're moving it to that date because of the international players. So they've moved the Olympics next year. And apparently their hope is if they move the season to December the 1st, they still get that break for the draft, etc. But also it means all the international players can still play in the Olympics, which for non-American people, in terms of European basketball players, that's the height of their, you know what I mean, that's almost the height of their lives. If winning a gold medal in the Olympics, which obviously we all know America are favourites for every year, that's the height. So I think that's a good idea in terms of trying to keep your international players happy. But I have to say, I do prefer the idea of going forward, that Christmas Day start that everyone talks about. Imagine on Christmas Day, 4 bumper games to start the NBA season. That just sounds perfect to me.
I mean, Christmas Day basketball is incredible as it is anyway, because it's on really early, so I get to watch every single game.
Yeah, true. That is one of the only benefits of the fact we're based in the UK, isn't it? Because I know I've got a couple of guys that I speak to that do some Miami Heat podcasts, and one of them's based in America. And on Christmas Day, obviously, if you're on the East Coast, you're staying up till like 1-2 a.m. for games. Whereas here, we have to do that normally, and we're getting a game at 12, 4, 6, 9 on Christmas Day. It's crazy.
Yeah, so good.
Right. So in terms of the other thing we haven't spoken about yet, actually, with the planned format, what are your thoughts on the double elimination game? So I know people have spoken about playing games, which personally, I'm a big fan of a mid-season tournament. Adam Silver wants a mid-season tournament. That's quite clear. I think it would generate more viewers. So this is almost like a mini test. They've done the bare minimum in terms of a play-in, but they're almost getting a little bit in just to test it out. So what are your thoughts on that whole 9-8 seed double elimination if we get one?
Yeah, so if the 9th seed is within 4 games of the 8th seed, they play a double elimination game playoff, where the 9th seed has to win 2 games and the 8th seed only has to win 1 game. Whoever gets to that number first goes through in the 8th seed. I think it's great. I think it's a really, really good way of re-engaging the fans, bringing some excitement to that sort of 8th and 9th place playoff, and it gives, these lower down teams that haven't locked up, a playoff place, something to fight for in these 8 regular season games. You want to get out of that 8th spot because you don't want to have that upset that all of a sudden you think, we let this slip through our fingers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think it's good. I think, like I said, I think there was a lot of talk about major shake-ups to this. And I personally, to be honest, I would have been in favour of some of the crazier options just because we know this is like an uncertain time. Why not try something new? But I understand they want to try and keep a brief format. So getting this playing game for the 8th seed, I think, maybe not as much as what I wanted to happen, but I think we all know it's going to be exciting. And in that Western Conference, you're talking Memphis, obviously, who are currently in the 8th seed, down to the Spurs, you're talking 5 games. Like that can easily be caught up in an 8-game period. You've only got 3 games between the Blazers, 4 games to the Pelicans, 4 games to the Kings. Like, it's not a foregone conclusion.
And definitely seen as, you don't know what shape these guys are going to be coming back in. And after long breaks, a lot of teams struggle with their offense. Their defense, they tend to get back quite quickly, but offense takes a while to get that shot back, to get that rhythm. to play as a unit, as a team. You know, these guys have been on their own for months. They haven't seen each other, let alone played a game with each other.
Yeah, some of these guys, they're going to live in apartments. They're going to live in houses without courts. Like, not everyone is the Steph Curry level of rich. I know everyone's rich in the NBA, but not everyone's on that level and live in that sort of area where you can have a court. Some of these people might not have shot a basketball, definitely not shot a basketball indoors for a long period of time because everything was locked down.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree. I think it's going to be very interesting.
I think we could even see almost a triple elimination. So, you know, those Western teams, they're so tight there. It could get to the last couple of games, game 7, 8 of the regular season. And you could be getting 2 or 3 teams fighting to finish in the 9th seed. Because obviously, even if you finish with the same record, it's going to go on conference record for the 9 seed. So you don't want to be finishing with just, say, 34 wins, but coming in the 10th seed. You want to make sure you at least get to the 9 to give yourself a chance to get into the playoff eliminator.
And 3 of those teams are massive. Well, all 4 of them really are exciting teams to watch, but exciting young teams in Memphis, you know, New Orleans and Sacramento, young, energetic players. I mean, I don't know if you've managed to watch many of the Kings games this year, as well as, you know, New Orleans and Memphis. They've been exciting, fast-paced games.
Yeah, well, like you said then, in terms of the Kings and Pelicans, they both rank in the top 10 in terms of pace of possession. So they're high octane offense. Like, that could be good and bad in this example. People might be unfit. They could be scoring points for fun, you know, just getting up and down the court non-stop against some of these older teams or against these teams that haven't got as much to play for, like the Lakers, who are guaranteed a 1 seed, for example.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that point.
I don't know if you remember, I think it was 2 seasons ago, I can't remember who they played, but the Denver Nuggets whoever the 2 teams were, they were playing each other on the last night of the season, the last game, and it was whoever wins gets the 8th seed. And that was almost like a playing game. And that was one of the most watched regular season games of the year 2 seasons ago. And the Nuggets won and got that 8th seed.
It's huge. It's huge for not just the players, but for the teams, the franchises, the fans. It means a lot. And if you kind of ramp it up and put more pressure on that one singular particular game, like it is, you know, it becomes game 7 of the finals, even though you haven't even made the playoffs yet.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the double eliminator can bring that as well. So just say, don't upset any fans, but just say, argument's sake, it is the Blazers that make it to the 9 seed, and they are, I don't know, 1 game behind Memphis, for example, and they play in that eliminator. If the 9 seed wins that first game, we've got another true elimination game, like you said, like a game 7. I think it's just going to be crazy to watch. With or without fans, I think it's still going to be entertaining.
Yeah, definitely. Cannot wait.
Yeah, and if you look at the table in terms of having those 8 games left, at least in terms of the Western Conference, there's a lot of jockeying for position there, you know, right? Have you seen how close it is from 2nd all the way down to Dallas in 7?
There's huge movement available, and like I said, it'll become. I think teams will play harder when it becomes clear what they're playing for in terms of the seeding and what they'll get for coming higher up. But there's a range of movement. The Lakers, I know they're 5 games up, but they're still not safe.
Yeah, you never know. Older team and things, it's just crazy. This could be a strange season. And on the Eastern side, you've got a team, the Bucks, right? 1st seed. They're going to be the 1 seed. And if you're that, if you're an 8, if you're Orlando, for example, you're not just watching over to think, oh, if we lose, I don't know, 7 games and Washington go on some crazy streak, which we don't know, it could happen. We might lose that, but also we've got Brooklyn in front of us that we need to catch because everyone knows, come on, we're going to rather want to go to Toronto or to Boston. Even though they're good teams, good home records, we're going to rather go to them than we are play Giannis, right?
Yeah, 100%. No one wants Giannis in the first round. The Greek freak will eat you alive.
Same on the other side as well. If you're the Clippers, you want to stay, if you can, in that 2nd, or obviously get that 1st seed. You do not want to be playing your colleagues in LA until the last possible time and just set us up for that dream Western Conference matchup.
It's what everybody wants to see this year, isn't it? The battle between LeBron and Kawhi and Paul George and Anthony Davis, the big LA franchises going at it with each other. It would be like you said, the dream Western Conference final.
Yeah, I think personally, obviously, I'd rather see Luka beat LeBron in the Western Conference final, but I would agree that the vast majority are going to want to see that Clippers-Lakers matchup. It's a dream. It's a dream matchup in terms of true all-stars. It's what people want to see. And they thought they were going to see it in the Staples Center, but hey ho, Orlando is the best we can do for now.
I guess they, in that situation for the Lakers and the Clippers, they're kind of in the same boat if they end up playing each other. They've gone from both basically playing at home, no matter what happens, to both basically playing away, no matter what happens.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a good segue actually onto our next topic in terms of we're going to discuss now who we think personally might benefit from the layoff. And seeing as we're talking about the Clippers there, I'm going to start. I think the Clippers are going to benefit one of the most from the layoff and the format actually in general because crazy stat, right? They're second in the West. Everyone thinks they're a great team. They're not being as consistent as you'd like, but Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, how many games do you think they've played together this season?
I know it's not many, but I'll be optimistic and say 20 games.
Yeah, see, they played 14 games together and 461 minutes only because on half of those games, either one of them was on a minute restriction due to injury. That's not a lot of basketball. That is not a lot of basketball. And look where they are record-wise with that.
It's a scary thought, isn't it? The thing is with the Clippers, their bench scares me. Their supporting cast around their two stars is incredible. They are such a deep team.
Best in the league, right? Best in the league off that bench, I think.
Yeah, it's obscene, you know, and I think that's probably the main reason they are where they are at the moment.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, that says everything in terms of the bench. Your two best players have only played 14 games together, and yet you're sitting in second with 44 wins. So if your two stars aren't producing together, at least you know that rest of that team is, and we know that two or three of their best players in terms of scoring are off the bench.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They fill that sheaf.
Definitely. But in terms of the Clippers, like I said, I think it's not only the team health in general. I think Kawhi is going to benefit mainly. I think Paul George had his shoulder surgery and will be rested in terms of the break's good for him as well. But Kawhi Leonard, we all know minute restriction. He's been on that for a while. And I just think coming into fresh saying we've got 8 games to ramp it up probably slowly. They're not going to go gung-ho with his minutes, but they'll get him to a point and then he's going to want to try and peak in the playoffs. And I think that is scary for every other Western team.
I've got a question for the Clippers.
Mm-hmm.
What for you about the Clippers? Do you think Noah is going to get any noticeable minutes whatsoever?
Good question. Speaking from someone who's flown to New York to see him, not to see him play, but and seen him play, I would hope he won't get any minutes for their success. But
yeah, the Knicks days weren't his best.
No, but I would agree that with what I've read actually, that it could be valuable in terms of almost, I know it's only 8 games, but regular season in terms of rotation, just minutes, just ramping it up because 3 months is a lot of time. We've seen in the Bundesliga in terms of football and soccer that soft tissue injuries are an issue. So if they can spread around their minutes, especially if they know, for example, after 2 games, right, we can't catch the Lakers. We've got 6 games to go. Let's just ramp up and just work on some set work. I think that could help. Yeah. I think his attitude, everyone says he's a great leader. He's a great locker room guy, which I know is a cliche, but that's what people say. So I think he could, but I wouldn't say he gets meaningful minutes. I think in terms of if your centre, do you know what I mean? Montez is on 4 fouls, I think, and you're winning by 4. I think you could chuck in Noah and say, right, just play on the defensive end, set screens on offense, and just eat some minutes. That could happen, but no, I don't think he's going to play what you would say is meaningful minutes. What about you?
That's exactly it. He is an extra defensive body for when they come up against those slightly bigger teams, like the Lakers, for example. You know, Anthony Davis, Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee, 3 big power forward / centers that require some big guys to defend them. And like you said, if people are on fouls or there's injuries, Noah has that experience to come in and put minutes in defending them. I wouldn't expect much from him offensively, but he could be a good defensive anchor for them in limited minutes.
And it just strengthens those operas off the bench even more. No matter how much he adds more than probably him not being there, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And then, I think also, well, in terms of the Clippers, like you said, in terms of the no home court advantage, and if they play the Lakers just say it, whatever round they play the Lakers in, to be honest, everybody knows LA is a Lakers town. Even if, for example, the Clippers were the 1 seed, there's going to be 80% Laker fans in Staples every time they play for all 7 games if it gets that far. I think they could benefit from a neutral venue, just in terms of they're not the most supported team. They don't have a big home court advantage in terms of noise, in terms of support. I think they could actually benefit from the move to Orlando in terms of the fan part rather than just the health and the break.
No, that's a really good point. I didn't even think about that. That's a super good point.
Yeah, I was reading the Lakers. The Lakers, if they play in the same arena, it's been a 21-year wait for season ticket licenses at a certain point. And even up to this year, you could walk in on the first game and buy a Clippers season ticket. They've never sold out. It's just in terms of the support in that town, it's so obvious that it's the Lakers pro city, right?
It's crazy. You wonder how a second franchise can survive and thrive if it's 80% to 20%. I know it's a big city and there's lots of people, but I mean, they've done well to keep going this far, and now look at them. They could potentially knock that crown off the Lakers' head.
Yeah, they've tried before in the years where Kobe was the injured star of the Lakers, and they were getting 20 wins, 25 wins when they were drafting the likes of Russell and Julius Randle and stuff. And obviously the Clippers had Lob City era, but still they couldn't quite do it. And the Lakers once again with LeBron the number 1, so they'll be trying to take that crown this year.
Yeah, if they can do it with the king in town, then they'll have earned it.
Maybe then Kawhi will go down as one of the best players of all time.
He's on the fringes. He's got the potential. A third championship with a third team will probably put him up there in the top sort of echelon of players.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think in terms of who have you got? I've got the Clippers as one of the teams. Have you got any ideas of who you think might have benefited the most from the new format and the break?
One of the teams that I picked out are the Houston Rockets, because get to that point in the season, a really important point called the playoffs, and their star plays about 5 games and then starts to drag slightly. Talk about James Harden. He puts his heart and soul into the regular season, and it shows come playoff time. He is so tired and so beat up. I think this break will benefit him massively. Not only that, his current co-star, Russell Westbrook, suffers from the same thing. He puts his heart and soul into the regular season and struggles in playoffs. Now, this 2-month break, hopefully, I'd like to see them perform in the playoffs and jostle for maybe a finals, potentially. It'd be good to see this small ball Houston Rockets team, no centers, playing. It's something different. I think Mike D'Antoni's got a good system that works for Russ and for James Harden. And I think this break will have benefited them, especially after the photos. I don't know if you've seen them that have come out of James Harden, where he looks like he's been training in the mountains with his college buddies, and he's come down a completely different person.
Yeah. I've seen that, and I did read that also he got made MVP of a strip club, I believe, also because he spent $1 million in a night, which...
Yeah, he's had his jersey put up inside.
Yeah, I know, yeah. So I don't know whether that was during this pandemic, but either way, I just think he's an interesting character, right? It's just, there's not many like him.
No, there's not many like him. There's not many with a step back like that either.
No. And in terms of this podcast, people are going to learn he's my least favourite NBA player. I do not enjoy watching James Harden play, but I think one thing for sure, if he's on form in the playoffs, every round's a struggle, right? To beat those Rockets. The amount of threes they take, if they hit those threes, any team, whether it's the Clippers or Lakers, I think we both would be honest and say they're better teams than the Rockets all round. But
Yeah.
they can get shot off the court, you know. If you're hitting those threes at a high clip, I think the amount they take can just be hard to beat. And the Warriors are the only team that've done it consistently, just because they can shoot more threes, or could back in the day.
Yeah, no, I am 100% with you. James Harden isn't. I do struggle watching him. I mean, at least Russ is, energetic and brings something to it. I don't particularly enjoy watching him that much either, but
it's definitely not a pro. We're sorry for any Rockets fans that are going to listen.
Sorry,
to us.
Houston.
Yeah, we'll try and improve. But hey, I quite like PJ Tucker. That's something.
I just love the system they've got in place there. That just, you know what? Let's go small ball. Let's commit to this 3-point shooting team, and because, like you said, it's been proved that it can work by Golden State. And again, as it pains me to say, back when you were in with the Knicks, they had that season where they shot lights out from 3-point range and got to third round, and then tried
second round, and for a while they were like third seed, I believe.
Yeah, tried to repeat it the season after and just couldn't hit those threes. Live by the three, die by the three.
Yeah, no, exactly. That is the Houston way. And when, like I said, favorite Rockets player might be PJ Tucker, but you're playing PJ Tucker at the 5, and that is true small ball.
Yeah, it will be. Again, it just creates such an interesting dynamic when they match up with a potentially big team like the Lakers or Dallas coming in with Kristaps, 7-footer that can step out and shoot and put you down on the block. And he's got post moves. How does who guards him the whole time? You can't have PJ Tucker guard every center every minute. I know James Harden, in fairness to him, is quite happy to step up and guard anyone. Especially, I think he prefers guarding in the post actually, because it's less movement. You don't have to chase people
less
around.
Movement, and can save yourself for the offensive end, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that was the first team I managed to pick out. Have you got another one?
So I've got one more clear one, because I know that you've got a couple more. So I think the Pelicans, they're one for me. So I think they can benefit mainly because there was a lot of talk that this season would just go straight to playoffs. We'd have a preseason almost again that meant nothing, and then we go straight to playoffs. And the Pelicans did have the easiest schedule remaining. They were spoken about. They had the easiest schedule left in the NBA. I know they've only got 8 games left now, so the schedule is actually harder than what it was going to be. They originally had the easiest, now they've not got the easiest, but they had the easiest. They were looking well. Zion was playing well, and Memphis also had the hardest schedule. So if we'd have carried on normally, I think, if I'm honest, the Pelicans or the Blazers, but I think the Pelicans would have got that 8th seed originally. So to go straight into the playoffs, I think they would have just missed out so much. So in terms of the format, I just think it's great for them that they still get that chance to catch them that 8th seed, which would be so important for such a young team.
Yeah, I completely agree there. And, it's something we've all wanted all year, and we've only had a limited amount of it, but is watching Zion Williamson play. How can someone that big jump that high? It is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
So strong.
I've always watched Syracuse, like I said, because of Carmelo. But in terms of college basketball, always watch March Madness every year. And not a Duke fan at all or anything, but I was just watching every game, to be honest. Every game I could see Zion and RJ play together, it was almost like, sign me up for that. So if we can get some playoff Zion, I think that could be perfect. And if I'm honest, I also think that's what the NBA wants. I think there's been a lot of rumors that they were almost trying to force a format that gave a chance for Zion to come in, because we're not going to have these players. We're not going to have Chris Paul. We're not going to have LeBron James forever. They need that next star. And I know there's other players like my favorite player, Luka, for example, Steph Curry. I know he's not as old as those guys yet, but they need that next star. And I think they want Zion to be that star. So if they can give him a chance to either get in the playoffs or get to an elimination game, or even then get into the playoffs, I think that's good for NBA viewers,
do you think, if the Pelicans somehow make it in over the Grizzlies, do you think that affects potentially who gets Rookie of the Year?
Good question. So they're supposed to only vote it on regular season. So I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
Because
Pelicans,
I don't think. Yeah, Pelicans get it. Yeah, but I mean, in terms of Zion, I don't know. He still wouldn't have played a lot of games. If he plays all 8, for example, he still would have played nearly half the games of what Jar would have played. And I'm biased because I've got a bit of a bet on Ja Morant to win Rookie of the Year. So I'm going to stick with Ja wins it just about, but I think it could be an interesting conversation.
I'm with you there. I think Ja Morant has more than earned that Rookie of the Year crown this year. I mean, it's unfortunate that Zion's been out with injury, and but that's the way it is. And he's come back and he's played well, but he's not, for me, done enough over that sustained period of time like Morant has.
No, I think the layoff will be good for Zion in terms of these 8 games. I think he could peak quite well for the 8 games if his knees are good. We all know he's got a bit of an issue in terms of appearance, we think, with his weight, and no one's come out and said it on their end, but we all know that weight can lead to knee injuries, and we don't know how fit he's kept himself over this lockdown. So I think he could go either way. But I do think no matter what happens, even if, well, I'm not sure even if he scored 30 a night with 20 rebounds, but if he did well, I still think he would fall short of Jar's season, I think.
The thing that has impressed me most about the Pelicans this year is the development of Brandon Ingram. Coming off the back of the blood clots and the trade, he has stepped up massively for that team and is slowly becoming a real superstar in the league.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's not KD, but I think he plays similar to KD, and I think there's a potential for growth there. I think he shoots the lights out for someone that big. He handles the ball quite well. His defense has definitely improved this year, and he's more of a leader, coming away from that LeBron James, not dictatorship, but we all know it revolves around LeBron. And now he's got almost his own team to a point, up to where Zion came back. And then even when Zion comes back, he's more of a veteran in terms of compared to Zion. So it's more of a shared team, I think, at this point. I know it's going to be Zion's team, right, in the future. But
yeah, definitely.
But for now, I think he's been their best player. And I think that's something that he needs mentally. I think to be the best player, that confidence boost is going to be crazy for him. I think having them both back for these 8 games, they could be a dark horse for that 8 seed, or at least to play the 8 seed in an elimination game.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Do you see them as one of the main challengers? I know we're going to talk about some predictions in another podcast, but do you think the Pelicans are a main candidate? Or I know personally we've spoken off air and you're a big fan of the Blazers, like to maybe cause trouble for that 8 seed. But do you think the Pelicans are right up there with the Grizzlies and Blazers?
You can't rule them out. Like with most teams, it's like you said. How do they come back after this break? How does Zion come back? Is he fit? Are the rest of the team fit? And can they be consistent in terms of their shooting and the way they're playing? Because when they are clicking on all cylinders, they've been a good team this season, but they've had games where they have been awful.
Yeah, I agree. It's that young team vibe, right? I know they've got JJ, who's never missed playoffs, by the way, JJ Redick, in his NBA career. So he'll be desperate that they keep that streak alive for him.
Wow, that could be a real kick in the teeth for him.
Yeah, I know. I listened to his podcast and he mentioned even if they only get to elimination game, he's going to class that as getting to the playoffs because it's past the regular season, which I found quite funny.
That desperate to keep the streak alive.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So, yeah, we spoke about a couple of teams there. Have you got any more you want to quickly run over? I think you've got at least one more or 2 more, I think.
Yeah, just one more quickly. You mentioned them there, is the Portland Trailblazers. I think this season they have not done themselves any justice. I know they've had, the big injuries with Nurkic being out and Lillard was out for a bit. But when you look at their team, it's so good, and there's a roster full of players I want to see play more. I want to see them in the playoffs, and I know it spells trouble them going into the 8th seed and playing the Lakers because there's a theme of LeBron's team struggling against teams with very good guards, and I don't really want to see him face, uh, you know, his old friend Carmelo, but with CJ there, Lillard there. If I don't know if Nurkic will be back, but Hassan Whiteside's been playing slightly better than he did in Miami. But they've got great pieces, and I feel like coming off the back of this break and having a mini training camp, and then these regular season games could be enough to bring that team together fully and see them reach their potential.
Yeah, I agree. I think as an 8 seed, they're a worry in terms of if I'm the 1 seed, I don't want to see them. I know Zion's good and Jar's good and Devin Booker's good, but I just think the Blazers are a much better all-round team. Like you said, they're probably only not in the playoffs due to a bit of a hangover from last year, getting beat by the Warriors. But then also injuries has been the main problem. So I think take that out of the factor, they're probably already the 8 seed, maybe the 7 seed at this point. But I think they're a real big worry. And I would love to see Carmelo hit a 3 at the buzzer to beat LeBron in Game 7, but that's just me.
Could you imagine?
It'd be cool to see him play each other in the playoffs. I have to admit, it would be cool. We all know they're best friends, and the Heat Knicks days were always fun because all the games are at Madison Square Garden. It's always a big game at MSG. But to get those two in the playoffs, fans or no fans playing against each other, I just think it would be a cool story, and it could be Carmelo's last year. We don't know, so I think that could be a cool ending at least if we got it.
I'm hoping he's got another year in him. Teams would be stupid not to pick him up.
I did read again that the Knicks might want to offer him a final year. That's what I read on Monday, which would be incredible for me. I would definitely fly over to watch a game because I love him too much. That's just my irrational love for him. Yeah, on top of the Blazers, I actually did have a question for you. So we know that when the NBA was being discussed in terms of a return, Damian Lillard was very vocal that he's not playing. If there's nothing to play for, when they said that there might just be a 5-game warm-up, and that's not enough games, he felt, for them to get in, or 4 games, that's not enough games for them to catch up in terms of playoffs. So he was going to not play. Do you think his comments have been so outspoken about not playing might have led to some sort of change, or at least added to their thinking of, right, we need to give enough games to get some of these players a chance, like Dame and Zion, to get back in?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, it can't be simply just because Damian Lillard has voiced his opinion because he wants to make the playoffs. Because you think about all the people involved with making this decision, owners and the Players Tribune got together and they had to okay this as well, and obviously Adam Silver and his team. And I think they've got to think about the financial side, because these 8 regular season games, not only does it give these teams more chance to make the playoffs, but it brings in a lot of financial revenue, which the league has been missing for an extended period of time. So, the more regular season games they get, the more money they're going to get. Although they're not filling out stadiums with fans, like I said, the TV rights are going to be there. So I think it helped the case for extending these regular season games and having more of a chance for these teams on the fringes to make the playoffs. But I don't think it was the deciding casting vote,
Yeah, I would agree. We heard about these calls between certain players, and Damian was on the calls with the likes of Paul and James, Kawhi, players like that. And I think he might have been a voice, but it's just a small voice, right, compared to the overall picture of the league.
Yeah, definitely. A good way of putting it.
Cool. So that's the teams we think are going to benefit. We haven't really prepped this part, but just going off that, I think the Grizzlies are the only team that are going to really easily be a negative. I think they are a young team. They've got very hard games. Their 8 games are very difficult. And I think they're at a big risk of falling out, no matter who it is. We'll go onto that in another podcast, but I just think they could be one of the biggest losers in terms of not just going straight into the playoffs.
Yeah, I feel like we're picking on the West here a lot, but it's just so much closer, isn't it, in terms of people missing out or making it. And
Mm-hmm.
Memphis could potentially be in trouble, but at the same time, I don't feel that bad for them because they are so young and so talented. They could make the playoffs for the next 10, 20 years straight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. They are a young team. But yeah, going on from what you said, then, if we do look at that little Eastern bracket before we finish off, then what highlights are we seeing there? I know we've mentioned it before. You don't want that 8 seed, right? But those middle games, they're very tight. I think if I'm like Celtics and Heat, for example, you want to hold on to 3 and 4, right? You want that advantage of being above and maybe getting a team like the Pacers, who we know are not as strong as the Sixers.
Yeah, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking there could be some tactical play here in terms of winning and losing games. You know, not that that's ever done, obviously, but potentially tactical play in terms of. I'm looking down this roster, this list. I want the Pacers or the Nets or potentially the Magic. You know, the Nets.
Yeah, exactly. If you can't get to that top 2
stuff.
seeds,
Yeah,
if you can't get to those top 2 seeds, sorry, I think you're right. The Pacers are that middle group. I know there's no home court, so you're kind of just looking at player on player, aren't you? And I think the Pacers stand out a little bit like a sore thumb, and just in terms of the danger of playing the 76ers, the Heat, and the Celtics. I think it's just better teams, right?
yeah, exactly. The Nets without the 2 stars could potentially be an easier early round. The Pacers have been great this season. I cannot fault them. They are a good team, but in a 7-game playoff series, I think you can get the better of them. You know, the Pacers are in 5th there. The Nets are in 7th, and Philly are in 6th. And Philly would be a team I'd want to avoid. I think the amount of effort they will make you go to because they are a really good when they want to be and they're locked in, great defensive team. I wouldn't want to face them early doors because that could spell disaster for later rounds. Like I said, the James Harden effect, where you put everything into it early and tie yourself out for the future.
Yeah, I agree. And if you're looking at those teams, I think if you're the Raptors, quickly, I think you want to hold on to the 2 because you're probably, if we're honest, you're not going to get the 1. I know there's a chance if the Bucks lose every game, but they're not going to lose every game. So, but I think you want that 2nd seed, right? I think you want the Nets. I think you don't want to be dropping into the 3rd seed and then potentially having to play the 76ers when you could have been playing the Brooklyn Nets.
No, I completely agree with that. There is a huge gap between those two in terms of the players they're going to have available and who I rather would play.
Yeah, I just think anyway, I just don't think the Nets, even with Kyrie, the system, the team's not developed. I don't think they've gelled as quick. They need another off season. So I just think even with Kyrie, I'd rather play them than I would the 76ers and all their bigs. It's a hard team to play.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Cool, right. So that's kind of our discussion points basketball-wise. And we're just going to end more on probably a more important note in terms of the world right now. Obviously, we all know what happened to George Floyd, who was murdered by a policeman. So we just want to spend a few minutes just talking about the Black Lives Matter movement, our thoughts on that, and just our links to basketball, really. So I just want to start off by saying, obviously, I'm sure you agree with me, it's an absolutely tragic event, and it's awful for him and his family, and for many people that have seen the video, it's just awful, but it almost is a catalyst for change. And if we need to use it for a catalyst for change. If we don't, it's obviously a life lost regardless, but like his family said today, I believe his brother came out and was talking about, we don't want to, he's gone, and we don't want his life to be in vain. We want him to stand for something more, which I think the protests have done that. I think we're a long way off change, right? And me and Ben are both aware we're 2 white guys, so we're 2 white guys talking about an issue that means a lot to us because we're good human beings, and obviously we're NBA fans and got black friends and things, but we're aware that it doesn't affect us as much as it does the average African American walking down the street in America, for example. But what are your thoughts, Ben, on what's happened and how it links to the NBA and what we can do as A, white people, but B, British people, and trying to help the cause?
I think there's a lot we can sort of take from this. It's been a bit of a kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back, isn't it? You know, everything with the virus and then the history of brutality towards black people, you know, especially by police forces, people that should be protecting you, and it has to stop. You know, we live in a day and age where that cannot happen. Full stop. It just shouldn't be happening. There needs to be tight restrictions on what the police can and can't do. And I think it is, you know, well, I think in the past it's been a sensitive issue to talk about, but I think this has all highlighted how important it is and how much we do need to tackle it. I mean, from my point of view, I'm trying to educate myself more on the history of it all and how important it is, because it is hugely important. And I will continually try and find wherever I can to do my bit to help the causes, because it's shocking. And like you said, you know, we've all seen the videos, and it's harrowing to see it, and you wouldn't want it on anyone, not one person in this world.
No, I agree, and I think obviously this is a new podcast. People don't really know, but we're both based in the southwest. So obviously we had the issues with the statue in Bristol coming down, and I saw a lot of people that I know or vaguely know online who've lived in the same area as me, well, me and Ben, for years. They didn't even know the statue was there. They didn't know the statue existed until it got brought down. Basically, it was a statue in Bristol of someone who made his money in the slave trade. And nobody knew that, really, in terms of, not nobody, but a lot of the younger generation didn't know that. And things like that just highlight the problem, right? Lack of education, lack of want almost for white people to learn. The fact that we're not American, but we have like millions of black people living in the UK or in Europe. But it's like, oh, it's an American problem. Don't worry about it. That's not the case. We all know that it's a worldwide problem, and I think without change everywhere, we're not going to move forward. And what we're going to do is, obviously, we're not going to be afraid to talk about things like this, but also we're going to share on our Twitter page just some links for some education and maybe some things that some of the NBA players have said, just because someone might see something they've not read, and it could help educate, which is all we can do. Like Ben said, I think without education, how do we resolve the problem? We can't, right? I think the older generation maybe didn't have that education. And if you look at the protesters, a lot of them are younger than probably me and Ben. And I think that's just because of education. We live in a different world. And I think we need to try and keep it changing for the better for our kids and our kids' kids going forward.
Yeah, I massively agree. As you probably know, I'm a huge advocate for education, being a teacher.
Yeah, true.
And I think it is the tool for change, you know, giving the generations coming up all the facts, the figures, the knowledge, and allowing them to use that to make this world a better, freer place. Because at the end of the day, you know, nobody, no matter color of your skin, you know, your gender, should be discriminated against in this day and age. There is no reason for discrimination whatsoever.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, like I said earlier, it's a tragic loss. But one thing you have to remember is we only knew about that because of the cameras. That happens more than me, Ben, or anyone listening to this probably would like to imagine it happens. And if it's not to the same extent, you know, like whether it's police brutality or just racism in general, it's happening every day. And I think whatever we can all do in terms of education, helping people, help educate your friends or your family if they say something that's not quite right. You know, we need to be not scared to pull them up on that. And then in terms of linking it back to the NBA, I just think me and Ben have had a discussion away from the podcast about did we speak about this? Did we not? And we both wanted to speak about it. But also, we both found it amazing that so many NBA players spoke about it. We've had people like Russell Westbrook, for example, just speaking in the streets to thousands of people. And everyone thinks, oh, it's just another voice. Like, it doesn't matter. But they're idols, these basketball players, sports people, celebrities, whatever, that they mean a lot more than the voice of, I don't know, me and Ben. So I think people like that speaking is just, it's an easy way to get that young community, and like, as bad as it sounds, like a lot of the issues are going to be education for white people, and a lot of white people will watch NBA basketball because there's a lot of white people in the world. A lot of people watch basketball, so I think if they can learn from the people maybe they idolize, I think it can be a quick way to learn. Because me and Ben obviously both grew up in England, and I don't know about Ben, but I can't remember many times at school where we were taught about racism to such an extent, and in such a country like America, and institutional racism that exists in white privilege. I don't remember it hardly being spoken about at school at all. And I just think if these players can get the word out there and help one person or two people or thousands of people, I think any life helped is better than not, right?
Yeah, that's it. We knew about it. We touched on it, but we never went into the detail that we've gone into the past few weeks. And completely agree. That's what needs to be done.
Yeah, we need the sanctions for people that do wrong, but I think there's always going to be people that do wrong. I think the more we educate and learn and help and learn to love each other, I just think we can limit the people that are like that. And like we said, I think just the more people that learn are better, and the more we can change. And in terms of the UK, I think things like basketball and sports and whatever are just good ways for people to learn. So yeah, we'll share a few things on Twitter about where to read and maybe places to donate. Me and Ben will get a list together. Does that sound good, Ben?
Yeah, sounds great to me. Yeah, we'll put a little list together and then get some things out there, and do our part to get educated, get the ball rolling.
Yeah, exactly. We both benefit from white privilege probably more than we know, more than we probably ever thought about, to be honest. And we're in a country where there is a big problem, but it's just not as common because of less people, obviously, than America. And I just think we've just been shielded to it, and I think the world needs to wake up a bit. But yeah, I think that's a good topic to finish on. And just want to say, obviously, any families that have been affected by racism in general, but obviously George Floyd's family and Ariana's family and stuff, we just obviously give our best wishes.
Yeah, send our love and wishes, definitely.
Right, that seems a good place to leave this week's episode. Just want to thank everyone for listening. And remember to go follow us at our Twitter page, which is @_Hardwood Hoops, and go follow our sponsor, which is @MugsNFL. We look forward to speaking to you guys next week, where we're going to try and talk about The Last Dance and a few other on-topic NBA issues.
Thanks for listening, guys. See you next week.
Cheers, bye.